What is going on, all of you Nintendo fans out there in the world? I'm Mega Amster. Thank you for watching this video. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, I appreciate you stopping by. And today I wanted to reflect on my time thus far with the Nintendo Switch 2. It's been out for almost 3 weeks as of this upload. And I bought this thing at launch. I picked it up. I got Mario Kart with it, and I got like a carrying case for it. And I'm excited for some of the games coming out later this year and hopefully beyond. But for now, I wanted to talk about, after about a few weeks, kind of my thoughts on the hardware and a little bit on the software. But I guess I'll start with the software first, because here's the thing, right? And I think people tend to forget this sometimes, is that console launches are never the best time to buy a system. Like, I've never bought a console at launch. It's the first time I ever bought one at launch. And I don't know, I think it's kind of neat to be a part of that. But what I will say is that it feels a little empty. And depending on what kind of gamer you are, you may or may not feel that way. Mario Kart's a great launch title. Do not get me wrong. I've really been enjoying that game. But I've definitely got a little sick of it after a little bit. And not that it's like, because it's really the only game I'm playing on Switch 2. There are other games that can play via backwards compatibility. There are third-party games at launch that I just didn't buy and I'm not interested in. Or I have on other systems. And that's kind of the thing with this launch, is that if you're like me and you're someone who really is looking forward to the new first-party Switch 2 games, unless you're like a massive Mario Kart fanatic, you might be best holding off if you haven't bought it already. Because, listen, Mario Kart's great, and for those people who really like Mario Kart, I think it's one of the best ones they've ever had. It's very streamlined, but it's got a lot of personality. Go watch my review video I uploaded last week on the channel if you're interested in hearing more details about that. But I think it's a perfect launch game. They did a really good job with it. It's a great Mario Kart game. There are some design issues I have with it, but besides the point, like, the software lineup, for me personally, isn't that intriguing. And I get the idea is like, oh, I could go back and buy like Switch or revisit Switch versions of these games. And the question is, do I feel like it? I don't know. Not really. It's like, in terms of new stuff at launch, there's not a lot. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I want to keep in mind that this is the console launch. Most console launches are like this. I mean, you look at the Switch 1. The Switch 1 had Breath of the Wild. That was the big new first-party game. At launch, you also had Shovel Knight on Switch, which had already been on Wii U and 3DS, and other platforms at the time. You had Fast Racing. Was it Fast Racing Neo, or was it the Wii U one? No, it was Fast RMX, and then Fast Fusion is the new one on Switch 2, which is kind of funny how I'm weird like that. You had the little game like Snipper Clips. Whereas this one, you have Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which should be a pack-in. It's really stupid that it's not, but then again, I've heard it's a fun game in its own right. Yeah, it's honestly pretty similar to the Switch 1's launch, and I think people are forgetting that, where you buy a system at launch, unless you're a diehard fan of one of the games, it's not the best time to be buying stuff and experiencing new stuff with the system when it comes to the new software. The thing with Breath of the Wild, I think it's a little different for me personally, and I get that this is a different type of audience, besides just core Nintendo fans, is Breath of the Wild was a big single-player game. And that's the difference for me. As someone who really enjoys single-player games, I really enjoyed having... I mean, I didn't have the Switch 1 at launch. I did have it. That was the first game I played on the Switch 1 when I got my Switch. I think it was for Christmas of 2017. And a lot of people who were also single-player gamers spent hours and hours in Breath of the Wild because that was the game you could almost spend endless amount of time in. And for a launch game, that's awesome. Here, you could still do the same for Mario Kart, but it's a different crowd, right? Because... yeah, they have free roam, but free roam is not really what they advertise. It's not a big single-player expansion. It's not. There really is no... I mean, you have the Grand Prix, you have the Knockout Tours, stuff like that, which is still fun, and you might enjoy doing those over and over again, depending on, like I said, what kind of gamer you are. But if you're a big single-player gamer, there's really not a lot new Nintendo first-party at launch, And I think that's valid to criticize. It just depends on, what kind of gamer you are. People probably said the same thing about... not having a big multiplayer game at launch for Switch 1, like right at launch, because they did release Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch 1 like a month after launch. So honestly, if you compare them side by side, the launches for the Switch 1 and 2 are fairly similar. In fact, when you consider all of the third-party games coming immediately to Switch 2, Switch 1 really did not have that. Switch 1 struggled with third-party games because of the fact that the Wii U just did so poorly. Third parties were very hesitant to jump right on board the Switch 1, whereas with Switch 2, we've seen all the exclusives that are coming, and I mean launched already on the Switch 2 at launch day, with Cyberpunk being a fan favorite, it seems, in terms of Switch 2 third-party launch games. Street Fighter 6 launched on the thing. I know there's some other ones I can't think. Sonic Rush Shadow Generations. And I know there's the whole debate about the game key card thing, which is totally fair, but that's a whole separate discussion to be having. I really would say that, having the third-party games at launch is really nice. So honestly, in terms of launch lineup, you could even say this is better. It really comes down to your preferences. I feel like there are more options, especially with the backwards compatibility and having all of that carry over. The Switch 2 just being a natural successor to the original Switch, it's going to have that. So honestly, like, I really wish there was more new first-party software, but at the same time, Nintendo can't crank out things immediately. They didn't have like a few different games ready for launch. They like to spread things out. We've seen this plenty of times before. And so, we have Donkey Kong coming out in July. That is going to be my game. That is what I'm really excited for, really the showpiece for the Switch 2 for me. And it comes out a month and a half after launch. Not a horrible wait. We've got plenty more coming this year, like Pokemon Legends ZA, Metroid Prime 4, Kirby Air Riders, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is coming out in winter. Probably not, if I had to guess, early 2026, but we'll see. There's a lot to be looking forward to when it comes to the Switch 2. It's just, if you buy into it at launch and you're not a huge Mario Kart fan, there's not a lot, but at least you can carry over almost all of your Switch 1 games onto the Switch 2 and play them there. So kind of the nature of it being a successor. And speaking of the nature of it being a successor, let's actually talk about the hardware, because, and I've seen this complaint a lot, which is totally valid, where the Switch 2 doesn't have a ton that makes it doesn't quite feel like that really innovative leap that Nintendo tends to do with a lot of their systems. However, first of all, they've done this before. We look at systems like N64, GameCube, where they prioritize power. For the longest time since the Wii, they were really innovating. And here, we're leaning more into the power side of things. Now, they have the mouse controls. I will say, I feel like there's not really many use cases for the mouse controls currently for me. I messed around with it on the UI. That was it. Mario Kart, maybe it has mouse controls. I don't know, but I don't want to play Mario Kart that way. I would love if there was like a Mario Maker 3 at launch. I feel like that would have been really cool to have. That seems like the perfect mouse game for Switch 2. And Nintendo, you better do that. I will buy Mario Maker 3 if you announce it, or some other Maker game, Mario Paint, in that style. But yeah, in terms of the uniqueness, there's definitely, I feel like the Nintendo charm is missing a bit. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because many of us wanted this. Not everybody, but many of us wanted a bigger, better Switch. And I really do enjoy the Switch. I mean, my top 5 consoles video, I ranked the Switch as my number 1. In terms of like my lifestyle, it's just playing in handheld or docked. It's like amazing what it can do. And sure, the battery life on this thing is not great. A little worse even than the Switch 1 was, but it is a bigger, better Switch, and honestly, it's great. It's honestly great to have. I love the magnetic Joy-Con. When I first used it, it was a little flimsy, but I got used to it, and I just try to handle it with care, but I really love the magnets. Sometimes I just take them off and put them back on just for fun, because, I don't know, I get bored. But the magnetic Joy-Con are great. The screen looks really good, even though it's only an LCD. That's great to have. It's a bigger screen. The HD rumble's improved. I feel like not a lot of people are talking about that, but it is. The kickstand's better. I mean, I'm not really using tabletop mode very often, but it's there if you want it. Having the extra USB-C port on the top is great. Bluetooth is better with Bluetooth earbuds. At least the ones I had issues on Switch 1. On Switch 2, they're like almost no latency. The separated Joy-Con are great, and the Joy-Con feel comfortable in my hands. I've got big hands, and so this feels comfortable. But yeah, overall it's feeling pretty good. The thumbsticks feel really smooth. I'm really hoping they don't drift. They haven't on me yet. I know there's been reports of that happening. To be honest, without proof, I think that's people just trying to stir up some controversy like we saw with other console launches and stuff, just for the sake of getting views and clickbait. But I really want the mouse mode to be utilized more. I know there's drag and drive coming out. I'm personally not interested in that. I don't even know when that comes out, to be honest. Do we have a release date for that? Let me know in the comments below if we do. But it's honestly, like, across the board, it's pretty much improved. I mean, yeah, the battery life is kind of the biggest thing that's, like, downsize. Also, the whole micro express SD, like, that's a whole annoying thing. I wish you could just use regular micro SD, but alas, what are you gonna do? Yeah, it's great to have all the older games brought onto Switch 2. That's really good to have, and have it accessible. The hardware is really good. I really like it. It's just the battery life, not the best. But like in terms of playing handheld, it's great. docked looks fantastic, and the hardware is just improved across the board. And I get it, that's totally not your thing. You know, that's not going to be everybody's thing. Some people are going to feel a little disappointed that, you know, there's no super new innovative thing. Mouse mode doesn't quite feel like that to me. Maybe once we have games, potentially like Metro Prime 4, potentially like a Mario Maker 3 that are going to utilize that to its fullest potential, that could feel innovative. But it's also because it's kind of like a computer mouse, which we've had those for decades now. It doesn't quite feel the same. And there's also the webcam. I'm personally not using that. But overall, across the board, it's improved hardware. And I don't mind that personally because I love the Switch form factor, and I love that it's just a bigger, better Switch. It runs previous games better. I still got to test Age of Calamity. That's one I want to go back and try out. But I also heard like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet performs so much better, so I'm tempted to get those games now. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom we've seen. Kirby, I think running at 60 frames. Could be wrong about that. It's great to see. So, you know, it's really cool to see them just innovate, not innovate, like build upon the Switch. I wish there was something a little more innovative. Like, I do miss that Nintendo charm, that gimmicky charm. What didn't always work out for the best, though. Look what happened with the Wii U, right? Like, I kind of like the gamepad for certain games, like Wind Waker HD, fantastic. But for the most part, it felt like a burden to me. And, of course, the Switch going from the Wii U felt super innovative, whereas now, it's like, yeah, we're used to this. But it's still great. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means I feel like it's missing a little bit of that Nintendo charm. But, like I said earlier in the video, we're going to start getting that with the Nintendo Switch 2 games going forward, and I hope they take more advantage of the hardware itself, not just Welcome Tour, which should have been a pack-in title, but that's another discussion. So yeah, I mean, I do want to talk about some of the software features. I haven't even touched GameCube NSO. I would like to do a stream for that at some point in the near future with multiplayer, maybe. Really cool to just have that. I'm still shocked they even did that in the first place, but really cool to have that. Game chat, I actually used that during a Mario Kart stream a few weeks ago, and it actually worked a lot better than I was expecting. The built-in mic actually captured my voice decently well to where my friends could hear me, even though it's like below me and like kind of a little away, which is really good. The connection seemed good. The fact that you could have the footage up in like the little voice box and stuff, that was really cool. So honestly, it was good. I don't know. I'm actually kind of impressed by game chat. I know there's been reports about it can slow down some of your game stuff. I'm not going to use it super often, but it's cool that it's there, and like occasionally it could be like an easier feature rather than set up Discord. But if you prefer Discord, probably going to get more power that way. So there you go. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else I haven't covered. I really do like the hardware a lot. It just feels like it improved Switches, which was exactly what they were going for. And for me, the oomph is really going to come in the software lineup for the next year and beyond. But I think that's kind of the big downside to me. I kind of feel like I wish I had more new first-party Nintendo to play at launch, and so it's a little, it just feels a little lackluster. And because it's the console launch, I'm not saying this is a new bad console launch. Like, a lot of consoles have been like this before, you know, where you get it for day one. This is kind of what happens. Whereas in the past, I've been used to getting these at least a year after launch, and there's been way more to play right out of the gate. So, but it's still cool to have. It's cool to be a part of that group at launch of being like, hey, I have this new thing. It's fun to mess around with. But I'm really looking forward to new games, especially like Donkey Kong, like I said, coming up in the near future, to kind of make it feel like a more of a brand new system, right? Because right now it still just feels like an improved way to play my Switch 1. And right now it feels similar to when I got the Steam Deck, where it was a new way to play my Steam games. And this feels like a new improved way to play my Switch 1 games with the exception of Mario Kart, which personally, like, can't hold my interest for super duper long, but I'm still trying to unlock some stuff in there, so I'll keep playing it a little more, especially multiplayer with friends when that comes up. But I'm really just looking forward to when the new games launch. Some coming down the pipeline that I'm very excited for, and I'm sure we'll hear more as time goes on. But yeah, I think that's going to do it here. Overall, just wrapping up my thoughts, I really do like the Switch 2. The hardware is great. I think the hardware is really good. I really love Switch 1 hardware, and this is just even better, which is really, really interesting to see Nintendo do. You know, it feels like we're in new uncharted territory. Like, I didn't grow up with the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance, so I missed that whole aspect. You kind of say 3DS, but that also had the gimmick attached to it with 3D, whereas the mouse mode, I feel like hasn't been fully utilized yet, at least at launch, and so I'll be curious to see how that gets implemented later. But it's interesting to be here. It's great hardware, and at this point, I'm waiting for new games to come out. I mean, especially once Donkey Kong comes out, I'm full in. You know, that's what I'm super duper excited for. So, anyways, everybody, that's gonna do it for this quick little review, kind of like retrospective on the Switch after a few weeks, the Switch 2 specifically, after a few weeks of using it. But thank you so much for watching. If you did, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you got a Switch 2 at launch, how are you feeling? What games have you been playing? Do you like the hardware or not? And if you didn't get a Switch 2, what games either upcoming or ones we don't know about but you want to come out, what would get you to buy a Switch 2? But with that, thank you so much for watching. I will catch you on the next video live stream, and until then, keep on gaming.